Hello and welcome to Messing About Models with me, John. Today I'm going to be talking about the various DCC systems I've used over the years, pros, the cons, and stay tuned to see which one I rate as the best. Over the years I've used several different DCC systems, and despite having been on a tight budget, I've probably spent more over that period than I should have done. So if you want to save your money and invest wisely in the right DCC system for you, stay tuned. I first came across DCC back in 2005 when I was making one of my many restarts into the hobby. I'd been to an exhibition where there was a DCC layout and was really impressed by the slow speed control, the ability to have more than one loco moving on the same section of track, as well as the option for lighting to be always on rather than varying with the track voltage. By the way, one thing I would highly recommend before you choose a DCC system is to see some of the different ones in action, and if possible, have a play yourself. That's the advantage of being in a model railway club, but if you're not, next time you're at an exhibition, chat to the people behind the layouts. They won't bite and will be more than happy to talk to you about the hobby. Anyway, back to the story. I'd read up on the various systems that were then available, and wanting to go for the best quality one, opted for a Lenz system. I had seen the Set 100 system in action, and Lenz were one of the early drivers of DCC, and German engineering had, probably still does have, a good reputation for reliability. The only problem was the cost. However, they offered an entry-level system, the Lenz Compact. The Atlas Commander is a rebadged version for the American market, and you might see some of those about, but it's basically the same thing. And while the Lenz Compact was a solid choice, the manual was quite difficult to read. I think it was badly translated from German, and you had to scroll through lots of options on the controller. In the end, I gave up on it, and while I still recommend Lenz decoders, I wouldn't recommend the Lenz Compact. They haven't developed their other controllers for several years either, and so now they're all really basic in comparison to what's currently available. The next controller I used was the Bachman Easy Command. This wasn't really a conscious choice of mine, as it was in a digital starter set from Bachman that I wanted to get for the rolling stock that was in there. Whilst it was fine for what it did, it was very limited, and you could only access functions 1 to 8, which was a problem if your loco happened to have things on other function numbers. The other limitation was that you could only control 8 locos. It did allow you to control a DC loco on button number 10, and that wasn't a major problem for me at the time. I didn't have that many locos that were chipped, but I quickly dropped it anyway. It's on sale at the moment for £140, and I don't really think that's value for money for what you get. It was around about this sort of time, about 10-12 years ago, that Hornby entered the DCC market, and their first product was the Hornby Select. However, early versions were really very limited and had problems controlling some brands of decoder, as it wasn't actually fully DCC compliant. Again, there were lots of limitations with the controller, and I'd expect more, but you can be paying up to £135 for Hornby Select. The very latest ones that are out have updated firmware which resolves some of these issues, but it still has limitations due to the physical design, and the build quality just doesn't feel good. It really feels like one of their cheap train set controllers. Now, I haven't tried the Elite controller for Hornby, but at close to £300 I don't think I'll bother. At least it has the ability to upgrade the firmware via a USB connection rather than having to send it back to Hornby like you do with a Select. And if you've got a Select, I'd recommend that you get it upgraded to the latest firmware by sending it back to Hornby's customer services. In recent years, I've also tried the Hornby combination of RailMaster software with an eLink controller. This turns your computer into a controller. However, the graphics are relatively limited, and I had quite a few issues in getting the software to link to the eLink device. One thing it did do was make it easier to program decoders, and I quite like the database of locomotives that it had in the software. I think there was an opportunity lost by Hornby in not having provided a pre-programmed choice of CV settings for its own locos. eLink hasn't been available for some time now, and I got one when it was going cheap at Hatton's. I wouldn't have paid the full price for the setup, and I'd be careful about buying one if I were you. For a long time, however, my DCC controller was the Bachmann Dynamis. I really liked the idea of wireless control, and the display was an improvement on the previous controllers that I'd used. However, despite costing me over £100 at the time, it too has limitations. Firstly, the wireless control is by infrared, just like your TV remote control, and it's actually quite susceptible to cutting out, especially if you've got fluorescent lighting or if there's any sunshine coming into your room. It's also limited to programming on the main, which means you can't read back what the current settings are for CVs. The little joystick control takes a bit of getting used to as well. It's certainly not a controller that you can just pick up and get the best out of straight away. It took me quite a while to get used to it. I like the idea of having it hanging around my neck on a lanyard, but you actually really need two hands to use it. The current version that's out has been upgraded. Previously you could get an optional add-on called the Pro Box, and this is marketed as the Dynamis Ultima. Now this does allow you to use a programming track, so you can read back all those CVs, and it makes programming a bit more easier. But the total cost is brand new, is now £300. And again, I don't think that's value for money compared to what else is out there. We now come on to my current controller, the NCE Power Cab. I'd cast my eyes enviously on this for some time, as I'd seen its fans rave about it online. And you probably have as well. Got a chance to handle one myself at the Perth exhibition in 2019. I really liked the ergonomics, the fact that it could be used single-handedly. It just also had really good build quality, and the buttons were all in the sort of very easy to access area. You could just use your thumb or one finger to control all your locomotives. However, there was a shortage of stock at that time, and of course that was exacerbated by COVID. And it's only in the last couple of months that I've managed to get my own. The RRP is £190, so it compares quite favourably with many of the other systems about. I got mine for £150, so shop around, you can get a bargain. And what you do get is a fully featured system for the price of an entry-level setup from the other manufacturers. Configuring your decoder is a snap as well, because you have a series of yes-no questions which allow you to set up things like DCC running in forward and reverse direction. Check out some of my other videos on using the Power Cab. I highly recommend it, both from a cost point of view and for the features it has, let alone the ergonomics, which are better than other controllers of a similar design. And lastly, a special mention to the Sprog. Whilst it's not technically a controller in itself, I would definitely recommend having one, especially if you have a large fleet of locos and you're really into programming the different variables. I've used one in conjunction with the free JMRI software, both for programming and for control. Now, computer control takes some getting used to, and I wouldn't really go down that route myself. I kind of like the feel of moving a button or a knob. But check it out if it's for you. It is a must for those programming geeks though. Don't forget to like and subscribe, especially if you want to see more on the NCE Power Cab and how to get more out of your DCC system. I've really started going down the sound route. It adds so much to the fun of playing trains. So, see you in the next one. Bye!